Hi, good afternoon everyone. My name is Charles Rapson. I'm hoping you can see this and hear me. I'm not sure how you minimize this, but I'll have a go anyway. What I'm going to talk to you about is the basics of marketing and also the secrets of how you ensure that your marketing plan is successful and that you are delivering results. There was somebody who once said that 50% of marketing effort and spend is wasted. The problem is which 50%. But by understanding the basic fundamentals of marketing and the secrets that make it successful, then that should avoid that problem, or at least minimize it. So, a little bit about me. I've been involved in product and brand marketing for quite a number of years, mostly in the automotive sector for the bulk of that time. But I've also run my own marketing and business consultancy service. And I'm currently the MD of Corbridge Enterprises, which is a social enterprise providing work experience, training and employment for predominantly people with learning disabilities. So let's get on to the subject, the secret of marketing. Fundamentally, it is very simple. And this is probably the biggest lesson that I've learned in all my time of marketing. The secret of marketing and making it successful and avoiding waste is to understand the customer. And I'm going to keep coming back to that topic all the way through the presentation about understanding the customer. Now, it's not just about understanding the customer in broad terms, it's about getting to know them really well. But also, you will never be able to sell your products to everyone. I get frustrated every time I ask somebody who their market is, and I get the response back, it's everyone. That's not possible. You cannot sell your product to everyone. So it's important to understand the customer, but also to look at sort of common traits that exist within that market and segment them. So break them down into bite-sized chunks and then target and prioritize to that market based on where you can either make quick wins or alternatively the more profitable sectors of the market, because some customers will be more profitable than others. So understanding the market is fundamental. I didn't understand the importance of this early on in my career, and I've made a number of mistakes in the process, and I've learned as much from my failures as from my successes. When I set up my own business, there was a fundamental, very small technical detail that I had missed in the way that the customer interacts with the service that I was offering, which almost closed my business, but luckily I was able to rescue it at the last moment. But it's a very easy mistake to make, to think that you know the customer. What you really need to be in a position is that you actually do know the customer. You don't think you know them, but you do know them. So decide who your customers are and get to know them really well. And by really well, I mean get to know them as well as you know yourself, or at least members of your own family. You need to know what it is about your service that's attractive to them, what problem it solves for them. You want to know how they think. You need to know how they feel. You need to know about how they make decisions, what the process is for them to make decisions. Are you talking to the decision maker, or are you just talking to a person in an organization? And even understand their prejudices, because people will have unspoken barriers to buying a product, and it's a question of getting to know what those barriers are. So get to know them really well, and the best way of getting to know a customer really well is to talk to them, speak to them, find out what makes them tick. And it's surprising how open customers will be when you actually start to discuss with them and enter into dialogue with them about the product or service that you're offering and what it is about it that appeals or doesn't appeal. And it can be as simple as it's in the wrong color. So ask them a lot of questions, and ask lots of questions. It's the usual who, where, what, why, how and when questions. Who they are, where they are, because that can make a difference, what they want and need, why do they need you specifically, as opposed to anyone else, how do they get information about products and services, are they searching on the internet, are they going to reliable sources, is it word of mouth, what's the way that they get that information, and also when do they buy. because in some products and services there will be some seasonality, or there will be times when people are not in a buying frame. But also look for common traits. So that's how you segment your audience so that you can start to target them. But also shape and tailor your product or service to meet their specific needs. It may be that your service can adapt to suit different motivations and different needs. It's a good idea to write pen portraits of your customers. So create a little bio of what that customer segment looks like. And really you should end up with lots of those little pen portraits. As far as marketing is concerned, then if you understand that well, then the rest is easy. Marketing as a subject, in theory, is very, very straightforward and very simple. It's the application and the practice of marketing that is difficult. But it's only difficult because companies only find it difficult because they don't actually really understand their market. So decisions about the product specification and the product features, about pricing, about how you communicate it, about the distribution are difficult if you don't understand the customer. They're much easier if you do understand the customer, and they will come as a natural consequence of that understanding of the customer. So get to know them really well, and you will find the rest of marketing is pretty straightforward. If you find yourself agonizing as to whether you should have an entry on Yale.com, that tells you that you're not understanding the market. You don't understand whether Yale.com is the right place for them or not. The other thing that's key to understanding is the buying process. And this is a process that we all go through, whether we are buying a product or service, or even down to relationships. There is a process and a thought process that we all go through, and it's important that you understand that process and you understand where you are in that buying process with the customer. People, first of all, need to become aware that you exist, and that's your first task. That's building that awareness. Having built the awareness, there has to be something that about what you're offering that attracts their interest and gets them to look a little bit closer. You won't get to the next bit, which is the desire part of that process, where they want to engage with your business. And until they've actually done that, then they're not going to do any action. Now, each part of that process, the marketing mix, and I'll come on to that in a moment, that you use will differ depending on where in the process the customer is. And that's also why it's important to segment the market and segment your customer base, so that you can identify for each of those segments where they are in the process, because you will need to prioritize the bits of that market you go for, and each of those different segments will be at a different stage in the process. So you will need to amend and adapt your marketing mix to suit. So let's get on to the marketing mix. There are two approaches to marketing mix, one of which is very much around the traditional view of marketing, which is a product marketing mix. You may or may not have heard of the 4 Ps of marketing. That's the traditional view on marketing that people like the Chartered Institute of Marketing will teach you. It's a theory that dates back to probably about the 1930s or even before that, when industry and business was largely manufacturing based. People were making a physical product, and therefore the product, price, promotion, place, the 4 Ps of marketing fitted well. But in a slightly different world now, and as social enterprises, you are probably not, or you may not be, producing a physical product. What you may actually be doing is providing a service. But either way, whether it's a product or a service, the market is different, and the traditional views of marketing are becoming outdated. Even the Chartered Institute of Marketing describes its own approach to marketing as being no longer fit for purpose. So the 4 Ps doesn't quite work anymore. The one that I prefer, and the one I would recommend, is that you look at the customer-focused approach of marketing. Some will say it's semantics, it's 6 of one, half a dozen the other, but in reality it's an approach to marketing that gives you a customer focus and asks a question about the customer all the way through. So solution, instead of product, value instead of price, information as opposed to promotion, and access as opposed to place. Kind of the same things, but a different focus and a different mindset in the way that you approach them. You'll find more pedantic people in marketing will talk about the 7 Ps of marketing, which is kind of right. There are 7. Something's frozen. There they are. There's the other words beginning with people. So the people that exist within the chain, the processes that you use to execute your marketing and to understand your market, and the proof that's essential to know what is working and, more importantly, what isn't working. Now, the people within your organization and within your business are key as well, because the first point of contact a customer is likely to have with your organization might be when they phone you up. So who answers the phone? Do they understand what your business is about? Do they actually understand your brand and your product and your ethos? The process is something you need to understand because things take time. There's a lead time for any advertising that you may do, so you need to understand what that lead time is, so you're hitting the market at the right time. And there are lots of other processes involved with undertaking research and getting customer feedback and managing the whole marketing mix. And proof is about this bit about knowing which 50% is wasted and which 50% is effective. You should be measuring and testing it at all points within your marketing mix. So if you run online advertising, for example, don't just run one ad, run 2 and test which one works better than the other, and then modify them accordingly, and keep doing that. Keep testing the marketing and communications aspects of your business, and don't just go by the actual results, the bottom line results. So if you look at what actually happens, where in the process people are, what the level of awareness is, how much interest there is, and right through to the selling bit. But knowing what's not working is very important, because that's the bit that will save you a lot of money. So we'll talk now about the marketing mix in a bit more detail. I'm not going to talk too much about these other Ps. Those are things that you'll work out as you go along. If you understand the customer and you understand the market, most of these things will happen automatically and naturally. So solution. This is just a different way of looking at the product or the service that you offer. When customers are buying something, whether it's whatever it may be, what they're trying to do is to solve, maybe not a problem, but to solve an issue for them, something that will achieve something that they do. So you buy a phone because you need to make phone calls. So you need to look at your product or your service in the way of how it solves the problem or the issue for the customers that you've identified. It forces you to think about what the benefits of your solution are, as opposed to what other things they might be looking at. And selling the benefits of your service rather than the features and specification is vital, because nobody, quite frankly, is bothered or interested in the features of your product. What they are interested in is what it does for them. What benefit does it do? How does it solve a problem? How does it meet their needs? And it also asks you to look at the product in terms of what it actually does. Does it need to be changed, or does it need to be modified to suit different customer targets and different markets, or to solve other needs perhaps? So there may be a potential for your service or your product to satisfy a need that you hadn't anticipated, and you'll get to know that by talking to the customer. You should also bear in mind that when you're looking at your product or service, that the competitors for what you're offering may not be as obvious as you think. We tend to look at those organizations or those products that are directly related to us. But in this day and age, people are making spending decisions all the time. I had a conversation recently with a double glazing salesman who couldn't understand why I didn't want to buy his double glazing product because it was the cheapest in the market. My answer was, because I'm also going to buy some garden fencing, and it's one or the other. So what you're actually competing with is not just the obvious products, but those things that solve problems for the customer. Your product or service will succeed depending on where it is in the list of priorities that that customer's got. So thinking about what you're offering as a solution to a problem or a need rather than just a product will make you think about the benefits and how those apply to your customer, make you think about the customer needs. It'll make you think in a broader sense about competing products and services or competition for share of mind or share of pocket. And it will also help you to understand how well your service meets those needs. Value or price is a difficult one. I've put on there, even if it's free, there is a cost. We had a meeting room in our office that we used to lend out to other social enterprises and voluntary groups in the area. And what we found is it was offered for free of charge to them, is that people were booking it and then not turning up, or they were using the meeting room and leaving it in a mess. And as soon as we started to charge, all that changed. People didn't cancel, people didn't leave it in a mess. So it was free was not the right solution. There needed to be a charge. The charge put a value on it, and the value was therefore respected. So in terms of the value for your product or service, think also in terms of what it means. Think in terms of what it means to the customer. Does it have a value to them? What is the value compared with the solution or the issue that they're trying to resolve by buying your service? Is it quicker or easier just to deal with a problem and not buy your service? It's also relative. So it's relative to what other things that they might spend the money on, whether it's a direct competitor or whether it is an alternative use for the money. It's a very difficult answer to give, how do I set the price, because it will vary according to the market that you're in and who your customers are. How much do they value what you're offering? And it may be there's a social value, so they are prepared to pay more because you are actually fulfilling some sort of social purpose that they buy into, but that may not be the case. Not all people buy because of social value, and for some people it makes no difference. They want a product and they want one that does what it says on the tin. But know who or what you compete with in selling your price. If you find yourself pricing on a cost-plus basis, you probably got it wrong. You've got a 1 in 100 chance of getting it right. 99% of the time you will get it wrong, because that's not how customers look at products. They will look at it, the value and the price, in terms of, is it good value for money? iPhones are a good example. I think iPhones are incredibly expensive, and I don't have one. But for some people, they're invaluable, and they're prepared to pay that extra for them. So think in price in terms of what it means to the customer and how it stacks up against what other things they might be spending their time or money on. And don't undervalue your product or service either. Don't try and be the cheapest on the market, because the likelihood is you'll be beaten every time. Try and find something about your product or service that adds value and therefore can be priced accordingly. Excuse me. Information is just a better way, I think, of talking about promotion. We live in a market and an environment where people are actually quite tuned into marketing. They've been bombarded with it all their lives, so they know when they're being sold to. What they're really looking for is information. I will never buy anything from a website if I can't find the price easily, because they're obviously something they're trying to hide. I need some facts. I need reasons. There are logical and emotional drivers to how people make purchase decisions, and very often the emotional driver is the thing that works first. I worked in the car industry, and for a long time, way back when I started, we used to promote the specification of the product. It's got this feature or that feature, it's faster or cheaper to run than the competition. the reality was we were wasting our time because that's not what was driving people to buy a car. They're buying it for emotional reasons and then using those technical features and those benefits to justify the reason. I mean, if you approach, say, the car market logically, why would anyone ever buy a Jaguar or a Rolls Royce? There's no reason to do that because it doesn't stack up logically, but emotionally it stacks out very well. So understand what the emotional drivers are in the appeal of your product or service to your customer, because that affects the way you present information. But there will be logical reasons as well, and you need to give them logical reasons for doing that. And how do you get them to listen? There is a massive communication out there in the market. Just having a website isn't necessarily going to work for you because there are 9 billion other websites out there. So how do you get people to listen to your message? And how do you get your message across? You need to be able to understand the things that push the right buttons for the customers. And that goes back to understanding the customer. What is it that they're looking for? What solution are they looking for, and why are they looking for it? And what is it about you that appeals? Don't be shy of promoting your social aims and making that part of your message. It might be the very reason that they buy from you. If it's not, it probably won't do any harm. But I find a lot of social enterprises try to keep quiet about what their social aims are. It's not necessarily a good thing. It's a strength and a USP that you've got, so you should use it. Access is not just about disabled access and not just about wheelchairs. It's how easy is it to get information about you, and understandable information as well. There's so much marketing done out there that sometimes it's quite difficult to understand what a company does and what products and services it offers. So make it crystal clear, make it blindingly obvious what you do, make it easy to get the information. Simple things like we had on our enterprise website, we had some information about some of the timber products that we supply, available in PDF format, which people could download. We found out by talking to a few customers they didn't actually like that format because it involved them downloading something and they weren't very happy about doing that. They wanted to just be able to see it on the screen, so we modified things in that respect. How easy is it to find you? So if you've got a physical location where you're working from, how visible are you and how simple is it to get to you? How easy is it for customers to join in or to buy from you? So any online activity you've got, are you making it easy or difficult? And how easy is it to like you? That's another thing as well that we often forget, that a lot of companies tend to come across in a very corporate way, which is not necessarily appealing to the customer. It makes them feel professional, but is it actually doing the work with the customer and getting them from that interest into the desire and action? Are they going to like you? Are they going to understand what your personality is about? And talking of personality, it's your unique selling proposition. So what's so special about you? What makes you stand out from the crowd? What's so special about the solution that you're offering? And also, what will people get beyond the basic solution? So beyond those basic product benefits or product features, what else is it about you that's going to make you stand out and make people want to deal with you? There's an awful lot of competition out there in whatever industry you're in, so you need to be able to stand above the crowd. There are loads of ways to communicate. I've just listed a whole bunch of things here, but this is not comprehensive by any means. How you communicate with the customer comes back to the question about how does a customer receive information. I've got a colleague who spent weeks, months even, getting himself up to speed with social networking, with Twitter and Facebook and all those things, because it was the thing to do. It was the latest fad. And when I found out that that's what he was spending a lot of his time doing, I asked him the question, well, why? He said, well, because it's free and it's, that's what everyone's doing. When he actually stopped and looked at it, he found out that the market that he was actually selling his product in didn't really use social networking. So he was basically making a lot of noise for nothing, for no reason, and wasting a lot of time in the process. It's great if your market is using media that is free, so Twitter and Facebook and what other forms of social media there are, but they may not be. People go on TV with TV ads and spend a fortune on it because that's the way that their consumers are receiving the information. There's loads and loads of ways of doing it. A lot of ways that are free. Word of mouth should never be underestimated. That's a very powerful way of marketing. It's the majority of our business on our we have 3 business streams. One is carpentry. The majority of work that we get from that is through word of mouth. We do very little advertising on it. I think we've spent all of about £50 on marketing this year already, and probably not going to spend any more. Another part of the business we do is we do components of assembly. So that's a business-to-business relationship, and networking is the way that happens, because that's how I connect with businesses who might want to buy the service that we offer, and they need that face-to-face reassurance. They need to shake my hand and look me in the eye to know whether I'm trustworthy to deal with. But that's right for our business. It's not necessarily right for yours. So when you're actually looking at the service or the product that you're offering, think about the market. Where are they? How do they communicate? How do they listen? How do they receive information? And then make a decision. So as you can see, I'm not giving you any answers here that says this is how you run cinema ads, or this is how you run radio, press or posters, or whatever else it may be, because I don't know who you are and what your markets are and who your customers are. And the only person that can actually tell you is the customer. So try to talk to customers. You should be spending the vast majority of your time talking to your customer. If you're not doing that, then you're probably being a busy fool, because you may be busy developing plans and marketing strategies without actually understanding who the market is. The more you talk to customers, the better you understand them, the more relevant your marketing plans become, because you start to get under their skin and get to know them, as I said, as well as you know yourself, or as well as you know your family. So back to the customer then. What's right for you depends entirely on who your customer is, how they get information, how much they know about you. What they think of you as well is also important, because they may know about you but don't necessarily like you. I know about Lloyd's TSB, but I don't necessarily like them. And how they want to receive information. The more you understand that, the better, and the easier your decisions become. As I said, marketing is actually very simple in theory. It's very hard in practice, but only so. If you don't know the market, if you understand the market, then decisions become natural and logical and obvious. Budget, your marketing budget matters, but I would advise you to think of marketing as an investment, not a cost. But only think of it as an investment if you go back to the customer and you understand the customer well, because then you'll know how to communicate with the customer. And if every pound you spend on advertising earns you £2 in sales profit, then that's an investment. That's good. If it becomes a cost and you're spending more than you're earning, then you've got something wrong. So go back to the customer and go back to the start of that process and try and understand the customer better. In terms of developing your marketing plan, start with who. Again, back to the customer. You always start with the customer. Look at what you are selling. Is it a product? Is it a service? How does it solve their solution? How you are going to sell it? Is it through retail outlets? Is it through is it an online business? Is it face-to-face selling? Where are you going to sell it as well? So the geography of where you're looking at is important. The business I run myself was a marketing and business consultancy in the car dealers, because I'd spent so long in the car industry, I knew that market very well. The reason my biggest competitor was Auto Trader. On the face of it, there was an online aspect of my business, but there's a lot more going under behind the scenes on that one. But I used to be able to beat Auto Trader, whether it was in online or in dealers, by being very geographically focused. So I would target particular areas and offer a service that was very bespoke to the local market. Car dealers sell the cars in the local market, so it doesn't matter that I wasn't national. It was important that I was very obvious in the local area. So it may be that there's some geographical targeting in there. When is the customer going to buy? And there's two aspects to this. One is the stage they are in that process of awareness, interest, desire, and action. So when is the point that they're going to buy? If you go in too early when they're just becoming aware of you, then that can put customers off. It might also be that your market is seasonal. Our timber and carpentry business is very seasonal. So between October and February, forget it, nothing actually happens. All the business is done during the spring, summer and autumn months. So understanding when is important, either in terms of the sales process or in the seasonality of the market. Why is the customer going to buy? They're going to buy because what you're offering solves a problem that has become an issue, or even just satisfies a need that is a priority to them at that point in time. And it's understanding that why. That's important in making sure that you are giving out the right messages. And also, how will you know if it works? So go back to that, one of those other P words about proof is how are you going to measure the effectiveness of your marketing campaigns. With some, it's very easy to measure the effectiveness. So if you're running online pay-per-click advertising, you get instant feedback on how many people are clicking through to your ads, and there are things within, say, Google Analytics, for example, that will tell you what they're actually doing once they've gone onto your website. With other forms of marketing, if you were sponsoring something, how are you ever going to know that works? My advice would be is if you can't measure it, don't use it, because you'll never know if it's effective or not. I'm not a big fan of sponsorship, and I refuse to let anyone in my organisation buy promotional giveaways, because I have no idea whether they're effective or not, and therefore I can't afford to make mistakes. So we don't do it unless we can measure it. So in terms of how you structure your marketing plan, start with who, what it is you're selling, and why you are selling that product or that service. What solution is it offering to the who? How are you going to sell it? So how are you going to distribute it, your routes to market? What are they? Including where. Any time scales that matter in terms of seasonality or stage in the process, and the reasons why the customer will buy it, and how you're going to measure the success of what you actually do from a marketing point of view. So successful marketing is all about understanding the customer. That is the secret to marketing. That's the thing that will make the difference between marketing that works and money that's poured down the drain. Understand the customer really, really, really well. And the better you understand them, the better you will do. And the better the quality of conversation you will have and dialogue you will have with customers. It's very important to talk to your customers on a regular basis, even those who haven't bought from you for a while, because the possibility is they'll be buying again. If they're not, they're at least spreading the word and telling other people about you. So communication and understanding is very important in the way that you work. If you get that right, then the rest of it will be easy. It might sound a bit daunting trying to understand, well, how do I price for what I'm doing? What's the value of my product to people? How do I promote it? Where do I distribute it? How do I get it to the customer? All those decisions, if you're struggling with them, it's because you haven't got under the skin of the customer. Once you do, you find that it's automatic. It just comes naturally. You become instinctive about the way that you do business. Some of the best people in marketing that I've ever met, if you were to ask them about the marketing mix of the theory or the academic aspects of marketing, they probably haven't got a clue, because they've been doing it instinctively for so long that they've forgotten the theory. But the reason they're successful is because they're all about the customer. And that's why I prefer solution, information, value, and access as a different definition of the marketing mix to the 4 Ps of marketing. So that is a little bit less than 45 minutes. But that's who I am. If you ever need to get hold of me, colin.org is their website. That will find me, or you can do that through Unlimited. But have you got any questions? I'll hand back to Julie to get you through there.
Thank you, Charles. That was fantastic. Yes, if anybody wants to type any questions in, we'll stay around for a few minutes. We do have one already, which I wanted to read out. So in ways to communicate, I noticed that you didn't mention direct calling. I just wondered, what is your view of the effectiveness of, say, cold calling to raise awareness and interest?
Again, I'll come back to the same thing. It will vary from customer to customer. Cold calling can be, for many people, unwelcome because you are interrupting their life to tell them about yourself. People don't necessarily like being interrupted. It may be just inconvenient. You may phone them up and find out that they're in the middle of having a meal or they're watching something on TV, and your interruption is really inconvenient. On the other, by the same token, it can work. My wife works for British Heart Foundation, and they do an enormous amount of cold calling and going around and knocking on doors. But they work on the theory that even if 80% of people are annoyed or upset or put off by a cold call, 20% of them aren't, and that 20% can result in a huge amount of money. So it's a balance, really. I personally don't like cold calling, and we don't do it. But maybe that's just me and my bias, but also I don't believe our customers or our market would be terribly keen either. I tend to focus my marketing on taking it to people at a point where they're receptive to it. So on the business-to-business stuff that we do within our assembly operation, I go to network meetings and I meet with other businesses there. They're there to engage in a conversation, and therefore you're not interrupting them. They're happy to talk to you. If I were to suddenly turn up at the factory one day announcing the wonderful service that I can offer them, they may not be so welcome. Does that help to answer the question?
That was great. Thank you, Charles. I've got a quick question, actually, just giving people the opportunity if they want to ask any more questions. You talked about meeting your customers face-to-face at networking events, and I just wondered if you were able to share any top tips of when you're at a networking event and you're talking to people who perhaps you've never met before, how you kind of engage them in conversation and engage them in ultimately eventually being your customers.
Yeah. I think you've got to be quite brave and forward. I mean, there's nothing to stop you. If you're at a networking meeting, then the thing to remember is that other people are there for the same reasons that you are. They're there to meet other businesses or other suppliers. It may be they're looking for customers, but they might also be looking for suppliers. So just be bold, go up to somebody and say, hi, my name is Charles Rapson, I'm from Corbridge Enterprises, we do this. You need to develop what we call an elevator pitch in America, which is being able to describe who you are and what you do and what you want in about 60 seconds. If you can do it in 30 seconds, even better. Some quick sound bites that we're going to get people to go, oh, that's interesting. Now, it may be that they're not interested in you, but at network meetings, spend as much or even more of your time listening to other people. Let them talk, because as you're listening, there may be something they say that you think, oh, hang on a minute, I have a solution to that, because they're probably describing a problem or an issue or something they're struggling with. So listen a lot. But people will just go up and talk to somebody, even if you've never met them before. We're all shy, we're all bashful. They're as shy as you are.
Cool, that was useful. Another question that's just come through. I believe that marketing is the foundation of any business, and as I'm just starting out, I want to invest in a good marketing company, and is this the right way to go about things?
Invest in a good marketing company. It has to be a really good marketing company. I would agree that marketing is the foundation of business, because it's what we do here, and it seems to work really well. Because it's all about who's the customer, what's the product, how is it valued by the customer. Personally, I would never outsource my marketing. I think if you do, you distance yourself from the market, from the customer. So as a business owner, whether it's a social enterprise or whatever, you need to be the person that understands the customer better than anyone else in your organization. As soon as you bring in a marketing company or a marketing consultant, there's a possibility that your understanding of the market will decrease. That doesn't mean to say that you can't bring in specialist help for different things. So if a large part of your business is web-based, for goodness sake, hire a web designer. Don't try and do it yourself because you won't do it well. So hire a professional to do those technical parts. If you're actually getting into things like TV or radio advertising or even cinema advertising, then enlist an ad agency who know how to make those things so they work. But don't outsource your marketing or your marketing strategy. Outsource the technical bits that you haven't got the skills to do.
Great, thank you. Another question here. Do you have any advice for building really good market research information?
Depends what you're trying to do. I mean, there's loads of online resources available which will give you some basic high-level understanding of the size and scale of your marketing, how many customers are likely to be out there, who the competitors are likely to be. The best way of building up research or building up a library of information and knowledge, which is what you're trying to do, is to talk to customers.
Apart from networking and listening
what it is they would be. Sorry?
Sorry, apart from networking and listening carefully, when you're talking to customers, what do you have any tips on the best ways to communicate with them?
What, to get information from them?
Yes, to build up your good market research information.
I normally start by describing the service that we offer or the product that we offer, and asking them, have they ever considered, or are they actually in the market for something like that? Would it be of interest to them? And it's then going back to the sort of why questions. When my daughter was young, we used to call her the why bird, because she always asked, whatever answer you give her, it was always followed by the why. But it was a very good questioning technique, because it got you to answer in detail some questions you probably didn't want to answer. But keep asking them why. Why does this appeal to you? Why does this not appeal to you? Why would you? Why wouldn't you buy it? And those are the questions. I'm not sure if I've answered that question. I'm not sure. Perhaps I didn't understand it.
Okay, well, we can follow up on that afterwards. I think that seems to be it for questions, but if that question wasn't answered correctly or there are any other questions, then please send me an email and I can connect with Charles and we can try and get the responses that people are looking for. Like I said, we have recorded this webinar, so we'll send out the recording link, and Charles is going to send me over the slides, which I can share with you. But I found it a very interesting and informative webinar. Marketing, I think, is the key to success in setting up any kind of business. So I found it very, very useful, and I hope everybody else has found it as useful as well.